Thursday morning, Eagles fans. The countdown is on. We're down to just over 60 hours before they kick it off between the Giants and the Eagles on Saturday afternoon, which kind of makes John McMullen's life more difficult. He's all confused. He's got to go listen to Nick Sirianni today. He thinks it's a Friday. Said, don't let me make a pick on the game, Jody. We got the show to do tomorrow. I said, not a problem, John. We'll get it done. Busy yesterday for you heading down to the NovaCare complex. In your estimation, was it a good Wednesday?
Trying to think of the day. Yeah, it was a good, I think it's a competent team. I think there's signs that, everything's back to normal, so to speak, not from necessarily, Jalen and Lane are banged up, but everybody knows they're going to play. And, the whole offense is going to be on the table. There's going to be no hemming and hawing, no trying to protect Jalen Hurts. And so from that part, it's all positive. Now, if they dominate the game and they're up significantly in the second half, you might see some scale back. But they know they got to win the game and shrink wrap is off, so to speak, back to normal.
That's what I think every Eagle fan wants to hear. And yes, our producer Tone told me before the show, I'm starting to look like Jalen Hurts. I used to be able to throw. I can't throw like I used to, and I sure as hell never could throw like Jalen Hurts. But with the eye black under the eyes, I'm getting close to my Jalen Hurts look. And we're going to be looking at him in that first series, and specifically the play calling and how they handle it, because we all agree it was a somewhat scaled back Eagles offensive game plan against the Giants just 2 weeks ago. One that was good enough to give them the win, a win that they needed, but it just didn't wow anybody, impress anybody, and it does give you pause that there is the possibility that they still think they can't go to everything in their bag of tricks. Well, Shane Steichen, who you got a chance to hear from yesterday, basically put that to rest, right? He said that everything is on the table for this game coming up this week. Correct?
I don't know if he did it on the record, to tell you the truth. Shane is very guarded. I'd have to read through the transcript, but all indications from talking to the players and coaches behind the scenes, they expect everything to be back to normal from a play calling perspective, and everything to be on the table. And that's I thought that's the way it would go. That seems to be the way it's going to go with it. Now, for those assuming that means Jalen Hurts is 100%, that's the part I don't agree with. People are banged up in this league all the time, and they play through it. And that's what's going on with Jalen and Lane Johnson, for that matter. So, but the stakes, rise, obviously, win or go home. Got to win the football game. You can't mess around. Even though you're a pretty significant favorite, you got a better team, better personnel. Can't mess around in these environments, Jody.
Understood. So you got both coordinators yesterday, Steichen and Gannon. You said didn't necessarily come out and say everything was on the table, but he certainly hinted at it. Might have given you more off the record details. One thing that he did say is they will need to adapt, because in Steichen's opinion, the Giant defense has improved. Certainly last week we saw the Giant defense adjust with blitzing out of Wink Martindale and handled it successfully against the Minnesota Vikings, made it work. So you don't know how blitz heavy the Giants are going to be coming into this game. That's the challenge of every football game. The stakes are raised because it's a playoff game, but it's a chess match between the OC on one side, the DC in the other, and vice versa when the teams exchange the ball. You like this matchup, Shane Steichen against Wink Martindale, for this game from an Eagle perspective?
Yeah, because Shane's got the better weapons. Shane's got the better personnel, and he's proven, one of the things I've really liked about Shane Steichen as a play caller, and his record's outrageous since he took over this team, especially when Jalen Hurts is starting, was the Chargers game last year when he took over. So a pretty significant winning percentage. He's a guy that doesn't get caught up in the bells and whistles necessarily. And if you don't if you're not stopping something, he's going to pick at it. He's going to pick at it and pick at it and pick at it and pick at it and make you stop it. And I think that's the way you should play offensive football. I think a lot of younger coaches and Shane's very young get caught up in those bells and whistles, and they want to show off, and they want to do all this stuff that make people go wow. And I go back to Jimmy Johnson, 3 running plays, Jody, 3 running plays. Can't stop it. Can't stop it. Just keep doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it. I always talk about Hal Mummy and when the XFL put mics on coaches, which they hate, you got an insight into it. And he just said, do it again, do it again, do it again. And that's the way it should be. And Shane's really good at that. And I think, there's this big convoluted, you got to do this and you got to have trick plays. And who does trick plays? People who think they need to trick the defense. Who doesn't? People who know they're going to whip the defenses. What?
There is a confidence aspect to it, and Shane Steichen should have confidence in his offense. If Jalen is X percent, then again, we don't know what that percent is. We don't know what he's going to be at. Will it match up? The key is, will they be able to call what they called for the first 14 weeks of the season, which placed Jalen Hurts either at or near the top of the MVP race in the National Football League. If they can do that, they should put up more than enough points against this Giants team. And Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon both spoke about the improved New York Giants, which I will certainly give you that they're improved. It all depends on where you want to excerpt your demarcation line. Giants was 6-1, right? Didn't you and I do a bunch of shows here on Birds 365 where you said, and I can't believe the Giants are 6-1. I'm not sure this is a real 6-1. I don't really know. I know the record says they're 6-1, but they don't look like 6-1 to me. And then they lost to the Lions. They lost to the Cowboys. They tied the Commanders. The Eagles went up there and put a beat down on them. So they lose 3 out of 4. They won none out of 4 because the one non-loss was a tie. Well, since then, they've improved. But who are we comparing the most recent Giant games to? The team that started 6-1 or the team that went 0-3-1 in the middle of the season? If you compare them just to the 0-3-1, oh, yeah, sure. The Giants were improved. No questions asked. But we're basing this improvement basically on 2 games. They beat up the Colts in week 17 with Nick Foles laying on the ground and Ryan Thibodeau doing snow angels next to him. Okay. Nicky Six wasn't quite ready to play. It wasn't like him coming off the bench for the Eagles in 2017. Didn't have a lot going for him. And then last week against Minnesota. So 2 games is what we're basing the much improved Giants on. Are they really that improved, John?
Well, I think they are improved from, the pre-Brian Daboll era, pretty significantly improved. So again, it depends on the scale. I do think they're the least talented personnel team that was in the playoffs. And again, I give a ton of credit to this coaching staff. But I mean, we started with the defense, so I'll focus on the defense. And, Wink's a great coach. I mean, that is a great staff. Mike Kapka is a great offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll, as I mentioned, Wink Martindale. And I love the fact that Wink is able to be malleable. I think that's a big thing. And, but that defense didn't play well against Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota went up and down the field. Now, situationally, they were pretty good on certain third downs. But as far as giving up yardage, they just did it a different way. Typically they give up the explosive plays because they're blitzing. Now they play the umbrella coverage, and, Minnesota went right down the field. People talk about the Eagles and Jonathan Gannon, and everybody's focused on the last play, which was more Kevin O'Connell's fault than Kirk Cousins. But Cousins was 31 of 39 in that game, Jody. 31 of 39. He was doing whatever he wanted. The problem was the Minnesota defense. So the offense, that was out of character. And you say that's the best the Giants offense has played in since the last time they played Minnesota. So you wonder how much of it is, are they getting better, or it was just, a really bad defense? Probably a little bit of both. They've certainly gotten better. I think Daniel Jones has done a tremendous job of taking care of the football. I've said this pretty consistently because we talk so much Giants because it seems like they're playing them every other week. The Eagles. He was a turnover machine early in his career with different coaches, and now he's taking care of the football, and that is a big aspect of it. And obviously, Saquon Barkley's healthy. Had a career high in rushing yards, big impact in the passing game, and that Hodgins kid, they found him, and I think people dismiss it because they found him in an unconventional fashion. Sometimes NFL teams miss. Look, he might turn out to be Travis Fulgham, and after this little mini run he has, he'll go into oblivion. Maybe that happens, but he's playing pretty well. He really is. But he doesn't have that pedigree. I talk it all the time with TJ Edwards. Why isn't TJ Edwards a Pro Bowl player? Pedigree. Why don't people believe in Isaiah Hodgins? Pedigree. They're playing them. They're playing. It's in front of you. So I think they are improved. Are they improved to where they should be in the conversation with one of the best teams in football? I don't think so.
Neither do I. And I do want to just double check one thing. Do you believe that Kevin O'Connell was more guilty of that 4-yard catch on 4th and 8?
Oh, yeah.
Than the guy who threw the football?
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you why, Jody. Next Gen Stats has that little tool where you can do the 11 on 11 with the dots. That on that play call, and I tweeted it, and everybody can go look at it. He called. Remember the situation, 4th and 8. He called a double corner routes from Thielen and Jefferson, 25 yards down the field. 25 yards down the field. Your best two receivers. Remember, Dexter Lawrence is having a game where he's had 10 hurries. He's destroying the interior of the offensive line. And he's got his best receivers running 25 yards down the field. The only option for Cousins was an in route to KJ Osborne, who's the third best receiver. And he had a little bit of a window to try to stick it in, but the guy was just all over him, the Giants defensive back. And then the other option was Hawkinson, who's running a 3-yard route. So, look, I'm the first to say Kirk Cousins should have thrown it up, should have done a Hail Mary. I'm not saying it's not partially his fault, but that was an awful play call for that situation. And I've said this on other shows. Mike McDaniel as well with Miami. I talk about this all the time, Jody. Those two guys got bogged down in big situations because they're worried about the play call. And they just made terrible decisions. And that's why I go CEO coach. And you see Brian Daboll, CEO coach, Nick Sirianni, CEO coach. The only one in the NFC who isn't a CEO coach is Kyle Shanahan. And we all know his reputation. Those guys, those young coaches that everybody loves, they just got bogged down in the biggest situations of their season.
They may have, and I understand and agree with your CEO coach position. I'm sorry, it's on the quarterback. No matter how bad the play design was,
throw it up. I agree with that.
That outweighs the stupidity of the play call. And there was some stupidity attached. I'm not giving O'Connell a free pass for sure. Not that they had a lousy play design. When you put that ball right there, you have to throw it past the sticks. Have to. There's no other excuse. There's nothing that outweighs it. Kirk Cousins made the decision to throw it short of the sticks. That outweighs anything else that Kevin O'Connell might have done. I'll tell you right now, if the Eagles are faced with the same exact position on Saturday against Giants, hopefully not Eagle fans, he's not throwing to Dallas Goedert at 4 yards short. He's going to force the ball to A.J. Brown in coverage. He's going to hope that Devontae Smith can go up and make a play. He's not going to make that same mistake because he's just a smarter, more savvy quarterback than Kirk Cousins is. No, the number one person to play is Kirk Cousins.
Day after the game before I saw the next gen stats, play. I saw the all 22. I said it's unforgivable, and I still say that. That the situation. You're right. I don't care if it's the worst play call in the world, and it might have been the worst play call in the world.
Could be.
He should have thrown it up. He did the same thing in Buffalo. He won a game.
Right.
Jefferson just went up and made the unbelievable catch. It's unforgivable. I'm not making excuses for the quarterback. I'm just pointing out, when you hear coaches say they didn't put him in a position to succeed of any player, sometimes that's true. Kevin O'Connell hamstrung his team in the biggest situation. Mike McDaniel did the same thing with Miami. They had a chance for, Minnesota was supposed to win that game. Miami had a chance to have one of the biggest upsets ever with Skylar Thompson playing quarterback against the mighty Buffalo Bills. And this guy consistently couldn't get the play call in, consistently, to the point they had to burn all their timeouts. And then at the end, they couldn't burn a timeout because they didn't have one, and they got to delay a game. Just one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen. Nathaniel Hackett worthy, but he won some games. Obviously, he's not going to get fired. And Kevin O'Connell, to a lesser degree, one of the worst play calls you're ever going to see in a big situation with a season on the line.
Well, all of that may be true. It does not outweigh that you can't throw the ball 4 yards when you need 8 on 4th down. You have no timeouts left. I'm sorry. That just outweighs whatever god-awful coaching decision that he made.
You and I agree on that, but
we don't agree because you said you believe O'Connell was more at fault than Cousins.
I didn't say he was more at fault.
Well, you absolutely did. That's why I asked you. I said, did I hear this right? Let me confirm this, and you said it again.
Because Jody, you stop. Bang. In your mind, he made an egregious mistake, and you stop. I'm saying there's other parts to it, and there's other parts to it. I said it was unforgivable from the quarterback. But that doesn't mean there's not other parts to it.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you don't know, if you're the head coach and you don't know your quarterback, and by the way, that's the biggest criticism I can give to Kirk Cousins. The fact he's been playing that long and doesn't understand the situation, that's the bigger criticism. But if you're the coach and you've been the guy for 18 games and you don't know that and you put him in that situation, there's more to it. That's where you and I disagree. There's far more to it because there are certain quarterbacks that are savvy enough to do things on their own. By game 18 with a quarterback, if he's in a situation you don't know that as a coach, you better put your quarterback in a better stinking situation. That's where we differ.
No, I agree with you that it was a god-awful play call. Shame on O'Connell and the entire compilation of individuals who contributed to it at that time on that play. Shame on all of them. I'm not giving O'Connell a free pass, but the question I asked twice, now I'll ask it a third time. If you had to put them in an order, who was most to blame for the failure of that play? The play caller, the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, or the quarterback who threw the ball 4 yards when he needed 8? Who was more to blame?
The left guard. How's that? The left guard who let Dexter Lawrence run him over like he was a road apple and destroyed any option. Maybe if
so
the
you
left
don't
guard...
What you're saying, John, is you don't want to answer the question. It was a pretty simple question.
No,
it was the choice A or choice B.
What you're saying is... Jody, here's the difference. You're saying you want me to give you your answer to the question.
No, if you want,
I'm giving you...
You just said you didn't say that, so I'm giving you one more chance to clarify. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just not hearing well. Maybe this whole thing in my head
you are not
making
hearing well. We can replay the show. Anybody can go to YouTube. You asked me who's most at fault for that particular play.
And your answer is?
There's 67 things that went wrong on the play. If you ask me, and you only asked me at the very end, who was most responsible, I just gave you the answer. The left guard who was a road apple. What I'm trying to say is, and if you could open the ears, if he blocks Dexter Lawrence, maybe Jefferson's open 25 yards down the field. Maybe Adam Thielen's open 25 yards down the field. Maybe they make a big play. When you blow up, when you can't block a play. So if you're asking me who was at fault, Kevin O'Connell was at fault. Kirk Cousins was at fault. But who was it most at fault? The left guard who got run over and destroyed the play from second one.
Then
that's who's most at fault.
Okay. Then you and I would disagree. I would not put the left guard or Kevin O'Connell or anyone else ahead of Kirk Cousins in assigning top blame for that play. For me, my opinion, my football opinion is it's more on Cousins than anyone else. If you think differently, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood where you're coming from. If you say it was mostly on the left guard, all right, that's your call. My call was Kirk Cousins. He's got it. He has to throw the ball 8 yards, period. End of conversation. Before they ever snap the play, before it's ever designed, before it's ever running through his head, he's got to know he's got to throw it.
And we got to get to John Stolas, the greatest quarterback in the history of the world, who we ever want to talk about, Tom Brady, Joe Montana. If a game wrecker like Micah Parsons or Dexter Lawrence completely blows up a play, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. They can throw it up. That would have been preferable to the pass he threw. Yes, throwing it up would have been preferable. It would have been preferable. We agree. But it doesn't mitigate the fact that the offensive lineman allowed a player to blow up the play from minute one. So you ask me who's most at fault? Right. The left guard.
Yeah, and I say the quarterback. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Mac and Mac. John Stolas from Bleeding Green Nation joins us next here on Birds 360.